So good morning. Camilo Gomez, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Cybersecurity Subcommittee for OPAF. So I'm going to talk about what part two has for us. So I'd like to start with highlighting that we think in OPAF that cybersecurity is a difference. And the difference here for us is cybersecurity is to be designed by intrinsically into the devices and not something that needs to be bolted on later on, as it has been traditionally done. An afterthought is not the case. So the architecture, as you can see, there are several elements in this architecture interfaces we are concerned about from the security standpoint of view. So internal communications within the components of the architecture, the application platform to the connectivity framework and the physical platform, for example, but also interfaces going to the management systems like configuration management, as you see on the top, on the right, and system management. More importantly, the connection on the left, as you can see, the connection with other OPAF components. So cybersecurity is in all the elements of these interfaces. Please have that in mind. And the intention here is not only to help us protect the greenfield, the new, but as you can see, and if you remember the first diagram that was presented about our reference model, we have to deal with legacy as well. So we believe this is going to provide an additional security layer for the legacy. So what are the requirements that we want to have, the key requirements we want to highlight from the security aspects? The first one, of course, is this is a standards-based, right? So we have been asked to provide a standards-based framework for security, and as such, which are the best industry standards for that purpose. The second one has to do with the end users in our OPAF community. We're really concerned about the security level. What are the minimum security levels that allow to bring the right level of security from the beginning to the components from the get-go, but also the ability to interface, interoperate, as Dennis just mentioned. And the last part has to do with ensuring that these components, security is not only incorporating the security features within the component, but ensuring that those are developed. They are not an afterthought. They are included within the development process of the product. So those are three key components. As such, we distill a set of security objectives from those end-user requirements and industry requirements in general. As you can see, they range all the way from identity, going to authorization, authentication, and so on, to new elements like configuration management. They are not traditionally considered security, but for us they are. And elements like communication, data integrity, and so on. But again, new elements about non-repudiation and the ability to have components that can participate in environments that can allow for anomaly detection and other aspects of related to contemporary security. So it's not only enough, as I mentioned to you, to build the security functions or features, functionality, but also we need to ensure that is integrated into a secure development lifecycle for the products, and that's our concern. And it has two components. It's good to develop a component with the security features, but also you need to ensure that those are maintained through the life cycle of the product, which is also a concern of OPAF. So the end goal for us is to be able to have a secure product that is integrated with integrated security that is supported through the life cycle. Because we are standards-based, of course, we started to think which is the overarching standard, best reference for us out in the industry. And we have identified that, in particular, related to these two aspects, as you can see, there is a one-to-one fit between the ISA 62443 standards and some of the parts, in particular parts 4.2 and 4.1, that relate to the objectives that we have in OPAF. So as such, we have identified or defined 62443 as our overarching security standard, and I'll give you more details in a minute. The scope, of course, OPAF is not to cover the entire life cycle. We're talking about development of components for this, at least these first versions. And the set of standards that will be applicable from this series, because as you know, it's a large series and it has components for system integrators, asset owners, service providers, risk management, and many others. We are concentrating on the ones that are applicable to the components and the development of components. So we have three main parts, but not all parts have something about security, as I mentioned to you, but there are three main parts we are concerned. So part 4, as you heard, is the part that is defining what is the connectivity functionality part of this standard. And part 5 is the part that is defining the system management functionality of this standard. For those, as you can see, we have chosen two standards out there as a framework for each one of those two functionalities. OPC-UA on one and Redfish on the other. From the security standpoint of view, the concern for us, what is the security functionality that those standards provide and how well they map with the reference standard, in this case, 62443. So that's part of the exercise we did. You can see those results within the standards we're publishing. And then basically the 62443, or better, part 2, is defining the general security requirements, and parts 4 and 5 is the places where you need to go and identify the security functions that are going to be enabled in support and aligned with 62443. So with that, I want to move into our next speaker.